next week's assignment. You're in AOC1, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to be learning about functions and methods in this week's class, about variable scoping, which is about where variables are visible in the program. They're not going to be visible everywhere unless they're global, because we want to limit where the variable is recognized so that they don't like wind up interfering with other variables with the same name and that sort of thing. In general, you want to limit the scope to, only the area where it needs to be accessed. So you'll learn about that. You learn about UI alert views. You'll be using a bunch of those. You've had alerts before in JavaScript.
I apologize. We're having some bad weather.
Correct? You've had alerts?
Yes, I'm very familiar with alerts. That was about the only way when I started with Titanium we could get any kind of feedback from the system.
So this
logs wouldn't work.
A similar sort of thing.
Right.
Okay, and then we're going to have talk about NS number. Now, you may wonder why we have NS number if we have ints and floats and doubles and those sorts of things. Well, the reason is that ints and floats and doubles and those sorts of things are primitive data types. They are not objects. And for some reason, we cannot store anything but objects in arrays and dictionaries in iOS. So if we need to store a number into an array or a dictionary, then we need to convert our ints and floats and doubles and such into NS numbers, which are an object. So it's really just an object type to sort of wrap around our numeric data types. And then we'll learn about buttons, how you can set up buttons to do things, and selectors, which allow your buttons to actually connect to code. And for this week's project, you will be using what you've learned about NS numbers, methods, and alerts to create a single view application. All your code here should go in the view controller class. And the code that calls your method should go in the viewDidLoad method. Okay, the project is broken down into sections. You're going to create 4 methods. One's going to be called add. That method will take 2 integers and return the result of an addition between those 2. It shouldn't do anything else. It shouldn't try to print it. It shouldn't try to call another function. It should just take the 2 parameters that are passed in and return the sum. Okay?
Okay.
The second method is going to be a Boolean method, a bool method called compare. And that's going to take 2 parameters, also integers, and all that does is return yes or no based on whether or not those 2 parameters are equal. Okay, and that also should not do anything else, just return yes or no, depending on whether they're equal or not. Okay, and then the third method is called append. And in that one, you're going to pass in 2 strings, 2 NS strings, and it's going to return an NS string that's the combination of those, the second string appended to the first string.
Okay.
Okay, and that's all that should do. Just take the 2, combine them, send back the combined string. Okay, and then the final method is called display alert with string, and you're going to send in, you can either send in 1 or 2 parameters here. You're required to send in an NS string, and that's going to, that method should take that string and use it as the message that an alert is going to display. So if you want to, you can also pass in a title as a second parameter. So you can either pass in just the message, or you can pass in the message and the title. If you don't pass in the title, then you can just use a a generic kind of title that would work for all your different methods, all your different alerts. Okay, now in your viewDidLoad method, that's where you're going to call your other methods from. So you're going to call the append method with 2 NS strings, capture the result in a variable. So you're going to assign the result of the method call to a variable, and then you're going to display a UI alert view with the string that's returned by calling display alert with string. So you're going to take the result from the append method and then send that string into the display alert with string method, and then that method will actually display it in an alert. Okay?
Okay.
The add method, you're going to pass the add method 2 integers, and you're going to get back a result. You're going to save that in in a variable. Then you're going to take that variable that holds the returned sum, and you're going to convert that into an NS number. And then you're going to convert the NS number to an NS string. And then you're going to pass that string to display alert with string function so that it prints out a message that says the number is, and then whatever that sum was that was returned. You can pass in text for a title or use the generic title, but you have to pass in the sum. Now you're adding a little additional string information here too by saying the number is in front of the sum. So that's going to be done in the viewDidLoad method, not in your add method. Okay?
Okay.
Then you're going to call the compare function with 2 integer values. It's going to return yes or no, because it's a Boolean method, right? A bool. So you're going to take that and let's see. You need to display in your display alert with string function. In this case, you need to display both the input values that you sent in and the result. So yes, they're equal, or no, they're not equal. So in order to display that, you'll have to do a little string work in your viewDidLoad method before you send that string off to the display.
All right.
Display alert with string method. Okay?
Okay.
Any questions about that?
No.
So basically, your methods are like bare bones. They shouldn't. In your add method, your compare method, and your append method, you shouldn't be calling any other methods from inside there. You shouldn't be doing anything, creating any strings or anything. You should just be returning the values. The add method returns the sum. The compare method returns yes or no, and the append method returns the combined string. So I guess the append method has to do a little bit of work with strings because it has to attach, it has to combine the two. But other than that, it shouldn't do any additional
Okay.
additions. All those things should be done back in view did low, where you're calling your methods.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, that's about it for the coming week then, for AOC1, and I'll go on and talk about AOC2 if you don't have any additional questions or comments.
No, not at this time. I mean, we're not really working too much with the UI this week, so I mean, it's all pretty much done behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, the alert is really the only UI element involved here.
So, yeah. So I mean, sounds pretty straightforward.
Okay, if you have a good understanding of how methods and functions work, then it shouldn't be too bad. If you've never worked with functions before, then it might be a little more challenging for you.
I've done some functions with JavaScript, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Okay, great. If you have trouble, let me know.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, for those of you that may be watching later, I'll go over what AOC2 is going to be doing this month, or this week. Going to be looking at protocols and delegates. So you'll be learning what a protocol is and how iOS classes use them and how to create your own. You'll be learning about delegates, and you'll be learning about a lot of delegates that are built into the system, or well, you'll be learning about some of them, but there are a lot of built-in delegates in iOS. And you'll look also at how to create your own custom delegates. You'll have an introduction to storyboards, and you'll learn a little bit about interfacing storyboards and code, how to connect your elements with IB outlets, and how to get events from UI elements with IB action. You'll learn how to make a storyboard with 2 views and how to connect those views. Then you'll learn about several new user interface elements, controls, UI image view, so you can put images in your projects, make them more interesting, a UI switch control, a UI step control, and a UI segment control. And your project for this week will be to take the project that you did for your first week, or you can start over if you like, but you are going to use your 3 subclasses, but you're going to connect these so that you have buttons that correspond to each of the subclasses. So you need to have at least 3 buttons. Whenever one button is selected, it should become disabled so that your user can't choose the same button that they just chose. Choosing another button turns the former button back on. A stepper button has to be present to increment the multiplier for the calculation result. An execute button must be present and trigger the factory creation and then the overridden calculation method for the chosen subclass. So you're going to have these buttons that correspond to your subclasses. When you click them, the factory will create that subclass, and you will call the calculation method for that particular subclass. A text field, you need to have a text field to display the chosen subclass and then the result of the calculation. So in your text field, when you click one of the subclasses, it's going to first of all come up with the name of the subclass, and then there's going to be another button, an execute button. When that's pressed, it's going to do the calculation for that subclass and also multiply the result of that. Now remember, the result is the return value, so you must make sure that your subclasses return a value and not void. The return value is the result of the subclass or the result of the method. So the result of the calculation method is its return value. And that is what you must take and multiply by the number on the stepper. And that should be displayed then in the text field after you click the execute button. The text field content should always be left justified. You are also to add a section using a segmented control that allows for the background color of the view to be changed between 3 distinct colors. And you should also add an info button. Now, we're not talking about just any old button that says info on it. I'm talking about that little circular button with the eye inside it that you can choose as one of your button types. Okay, include an info button that will display a second view containing your name. So when you click on that info button, it should take you to a second view that has your name on it, and then the second view will need to have a button which allows you to dismiss that second view and go back to the first view. Each subclass button should call the same event handler. The click method should check for the sender's tag to choose the appropriate action. Use the factory for instantiations. Make sure your project compiles, as any project turned in without code that builds will receive a 0. For an extra challenge, you can add an email button to the second view that emails your @full sale address with the appropriate subject line. This will take individual research. Code may be borrowed from online sources if you cite it in your comments. Don't borrow from friends. But there's no additional credit for this challenge, so if you do it, just do it for your own edification and to give you something interesting to figure out. Okay. So good luck, and if you're running into trouble with any of this, let me know. Thanks. That's about it for tonight.